Americans are saying no, no, no when it comes to these Trump tariffs. You know, there have been some things that Trump has perhaps done in his early days that are popular. I've pointed those out. But this, my dear friend, is not popular at all. I've looked at a bunch of polling data, some with vague polling language, some with more specifics like this one. And in every single one, the plurality or majority opposed the Trump tariffs.
Well, Americans might actually get their way because the trade war that had been developing over the weekend might not actually happen after all. Now, bear with me while I go through this story, how it developed, how it evolved, how it devolved. It really begins with Donald Trump and his threat of implementing 25% tariffs against Mexico and Canada. He also threatened to implement a 10% tariff against China. Now, he gave a fascinating reason for why he wanted to implement these tariffs specifically against Canada and Mexico. He claimed that it had to do with the fact that they're allowing fentanyl to flow into the United States. Fentanyl is still a huge problem in the US, causing tens of thousands of deaths and overdoses every year. And last Saturday was when he made this announcement. And just today, Trump suggested that Canada should maybe consider becoming part of the United States if they want to avoid these tariffs. Take a look.
And we'll see what happens. I can't tell you what's going to happen.
You mentioned that he could agree to change your mind on the tariffs.
Well, we can always, but look, what I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state. We give them protection, military protection. We don't need them to build our cars. I'd rather see Detroit or South Carolina or any one of our Tennessee, any one of our states build the cars. They could do it very easily. We don't need them for the cars. We don't need them for lumber. We don't need them for anything. We don't need them for energy. We have more energy than they do. We don't need them for energy. So I say, why are we doing this? Why are we willing to lose between $100 billion and $200 billion a year? We don't need them. As a state, it's different. As a state, it's much different. And there are no tariffs.
We kind of need some of the products coming from Canada. Notably, we import 60% of our crude oil from Canada. That's because our refineries are able to refine the crude oil from Canada. And lumber is also incredibly important when you want to, of course, build housing. We get a huge percentage of our lumber from Canada as well. And after Donald Trump made these announcements, of course, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, came out and threatened a trade war while listing all the various things that the United States relies on Canada for. Let's take a look at that.
Our response will also be far-reaching and include everyday items such as American beer, wine, and bourbon, fruits and fruit juices, including orange juice, along with vegetables, perfume, clothing, and shoes. It'll include major consumer products like household appliances, furniture, and sports equipment, and materials like lumber and plastics, along with much, much more.
So not only does the US import quite a bit of goods from Canada, obviously Canada also imports goods that are manufactured and produced here in the United States. So US businesses could have suffered significantly from a full-blown trade war with Canada. But it appears that Donald Trump's threats have brought Justin Trudeau to the negotiating table, because the big update is that both Canada and the United States have agreed to put the tariffs on pause for 30 days. They've also agreed to things. So I'm gonna read you a statement from Prime Minister Trudeau. He wrote on X, "I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border." He continues to write, "In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-US joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I have also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. Finally, he ends the statement by saying that proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together. Donald Trump announced something very similar, saying that he will put the US tariffs against Canadian goods on pause for 30 days as well. Now, before we get to Mexico, Cenk, I know you're gonna love this because you love to be proven right, but on Friday, TYT covered the threat of tariffs against Canada and Mexico. And Cenk had a little bit of a prediction. Let's go to video 4.
So he'll go in and he'll go, I want this, and I'm gonna put a big consequence and punishment on you. And now the main weapon he uses is tariffs. And then the other side goes, oh yeah, we'll do likewise. But then they go out and they start to negotiate. Okay, first of all, as a strategy there, if we're being honest, it's not so bad because you're getting them to renegotiate something that we had already agreed to, but now hopefully to more of our advantage, right? But if you do that over and over again, at some point, people are gonna call your bluff. And when you do it, now you're in a trade war and now everybody's tariffing up 25%, prices are going up, people are getting mad at you. So now that's where the interesting and potentially smart part of the strategy comes in. He'll then take a small concession because he's losing, right? Because once the bluff is called and things are going poorly and the prices are going up and his poll numbers are going down, then he'll take a minor concession and pretend it was gigantic, and then call off the whole thing.
So, Cenk, I mean, look, the tariffs that he implemented against China in his first term ended up being okay. Biden kept them, he extended them, he added to them. The 25% tariffs would have been insane against Canada and Mexico, but I think your prediction was totally right. I mean, not only did Trudeau come to the negotiating table, so did the new Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, which we'll get to in just a moment, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, look guys, there's a pattern to things and we try to figure that out for you guys. And so, if you watch the rest of that segment on Friday, I told you that at some point he's gonna get caught. So remember, some of these tariffs are gonna come back in a month theoretically. And right now, I think he's playing a little bit too much Russian roulette. But what he did with Mexico is exactly what I described on Friday. So let's give you that.
Yes, so Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, also had a phone call with Donald Trump. Now, I felt that she was going to negotiate with Trump because just right off the bat, as soon as Trump threatened the 25% tariff, she said, these tariffs aren't gonna solve anything. It's better if we have a conversation and find solutions together. So she was already signaling that she was willing to negotiate. Now, they had their 45-minute phone call and she came out with a statement and she said, we also discussed our shared interest in reducing fentanyl trafficking between Mexico and the United States. At the end, he asked how long we can put the tariffs on hold and I told him, let's put them on hold permanently. He then asked, well, for how long? I responded, let's pause them for a month. And I'm confident that in a month, we will deliver results for both his people and Mexico. At the same time, I explained the gravity of the number of high-powered firearms illegally coming into Mexico from the United States. These high-powered weapons empower criminal groups and give them firepower. We also asked the US to help prevent arms trafficking from their country into ours. He agreed. And by the way, if that ends up coming to fruition, if Trump actually does take action to prevent guns getting smuggled into Mexico, which is a huge problem, that's a huge win, guys. So we have to wait and see what actually happens. But it's not like Sheinbaum, was a victim of a shakeup or whatever from Donald Trump. No, I mean, they had a conversation and it seems based on what she's saying, there was mutual agreement and there was a bit of a quid pro quo here in a good way, right? She's willing to provide 10,000 Mexican troops to the southern border in order to protect the border, I guess. And Donald Trump agreed to do something about the guns flowing into Mexico.
And of course, he didn't mention that part because that's not gonna play well for the domestic audience in America.
Of course. Right. Well, she didn't mention the 10,000 troops in her statement.
And that doesn't play well in Mexico, right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so who's more reliable source of actual information, Sheinbaum or Trump? Come on, guys, even if you're right wing, Sheinbaum's more reliable. So anyways, But to be fair, she didn't, like we said, she didn't mention the thing that hurts her domestically either. So when you put the two statements together, you get the actual truth. So
there's a little caveat though, and I really want to cover all bases and give you guys this caveat because right now it's unclear. So I want to be clear that during the Biden administration, Mexico actually had sent 15,000 troops to the southern border. My understanding is those troops were already at the southern border as these negotiations were happening. So I need to understand, I need some clarity on whether Sheinbaum is sending an additional 10,000 troops or if she's way smarter than Trump thought and she's subtracting 5,000 troops. We have to wait and see because there's no clarification on that.
No, seriously, guys, look, we want a real border. But we don't want to uproot innocent people that have been here for a long time, etc. But in terms of the substance of this, it is entirely possible that we got nothing out of it. But Trump doesn't think in those terms. He thinks in terms of political wins, media wins, and so he's doing exactly what I said on Friday. Oh, I'm gonna get you dirty son of a guns and blah, blah, blah. And then they go, okay, we will give you important concession. 10,000 troops that might have already been there or not. Okay, but all right, we give you that concession. He declares victory, I am the greatest, and I'll be back next month to do it again, okay? So far, if that's all it is, it's okay, God bless. Whether they were already there or they sent 10,000 new ones, I don't care. And in fact, I like that we're gonna try to stop the guns going into Mexico because they go to cartels and create a lot of havoc.
Absolutely,
okay?
yeah.
So now the Canada thing is still unclear. You guys have a lot of strong thoughts about it. I'll read it during the social break. I love our members, they're funny, they're good. Here, I'll just read one. On Twitch, Chi-Town's Finest 312 says, I need my Canadian maple syrup and the hot hockey players.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, so these are the real concerns of the American people. Okay?
I mean, they're the legitimate concerns of the American people, especially the hockey players.
Okay, but the reason why I say it could be Russian roulette is, look, if he keeps poking this bear, what happened, one thing that happened today is really important. Actually, two things. Number one, why did he immediately go, yeah, that's good enough to 10,000 troops, okay? Because the markets were crashing. So that's Trump testing the waters, seeing the markets going against him, doesn't like it, and gets out of there as quickly as he can, okay? And by the way, then the markets settled down and they went back up. So he's looking at that stuff really closely and maniacally. But the reason why it could be Russian roulette is the markets, like the EU, this is the most important fact that almost no one else is mentioning. In the midst of all this, he's threatening the EU with tariffs as well, and that's gonna come apparently in April. And the EU immediately put out a statement going, yeah, okay, like what Canada and Mexico is doing, we'll be retaliating as well if it comes in our direction. So apparently the markets, and I'm surprised by this, didn't expect Mexico and Canada and China to retaliate immediately. They thought that, I guess, that they were just gonna go, okay, no retaliation, you win on everything. But no rational government would do that, especially with Trump as a wild bluffer, right? So if Trump keeps insisting and the EU joins China and Canada and Mexico, and then they impose massive tariffs on us, we're gonna lose that battle. So hasn't happened, Trump usually backs out, but if he keeps going, that's the worst case scenario.
So final thing I'll mention is how China has responded. China has not come to the negotiating table, at least not yet, but they have decided to run to the World Trade Organization. In fact, the ambassador, China's ambassador to the United Nations, put out a statement saying, we are firmly opposed to this unwarranted increase, meaning increase in tariffs. We do believe it is in violation of the World Trade Organization rules. That's why China is filing a complaint at the WTO, and we may be forced to take countermeasures, essentially threatening a trade war. There is no winner in a trade war, is the final sentence in that statement. And so we'll see how that plays out. But China less likely to negotiate with Trump, although you never know. So we'll stay on the story and give you updates as they come along. This is a fast evolving story, so.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.